Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Allison, a writer who spends too much time on Tumblr instead of writing. Welcome back to the show, Allison.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back.
I'm so excited you're here. So, here's how this works. Allison will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Allison?
I am indeed.
All right, got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
The thing I love so freaking much that I want to talk about today are fearsome critters. And fearsome critters, I like to consider them a subsection of American cryptids. Cryptids, just for those who maybe don't know, are creatures that may or may not exist. Think Bigfoot, think Loch Ness Monster. So specifically, fearsome critters were created and popularized by lumberjacks in the late 19th and early 20th century. And they were just crazy stories they told, or maybe mysterious things they saw in the woods. And it was the same kind of vein where the famous story of Paul Bunyan and Babe also came about. So some of these fearsome critters were created just for pure entertainment value, and a lot of them are very silly and have ridiculous names. One example being the goofus bird, aka the Philomelu, which was a bird that flew upside down and or backwards. Some of these creatures were kind of created as cautionary tales and used to teach lumberjacks how to properly do their jobs. An example of that would be an axe handle hound, which were dogs with an axe for a face, and they were born when a lumberjack left out their axe overnight. And then some fearsome critters really lived up to their name and were spooky stories they told around the campfire or served as kind of explanation myths. So, for example, the hide behind were beasts that were never seen, because as soon as you turned around to look at them, they would hide behind a tree. And it was said that lumberjacks who went missing during a shift were taken by a hide behind. So a lot of the times these were just tall tales for entertainment. They were used to kind of haze new lumberjacks, and they were swapped between camps just to get to know one another. So some of the more famous fearsome critters, I'll say, include the jackalope, which is a rabbit with deer-like antlers and today can be found at most Texas roadhouses. There's the fur-bearing trout. As its name implies, it was a fish that quote unquote grew fur. It was another popular taxidermy hoax. The internet has recently adopted another fearsome critter called the squonk, which was a very unhappy creature with misfitting skin that was covered in warts and lumps. It was just super ugly. It was always crying, and if it was cornered, it would dissolve into a puddle of tears. The internet, of course, loves it and has adopted it as its own.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Another well-known one is the hoop snake, which is a snake that bites its tail and then rolls around like a wheel. And the last one I'll talk about is the hodag of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which was described as having the head of a frog or a bear, a large lizard-like body, large tusks, horns of a bison, thick, short legs, and spine down its back, which was another proven taxidermy hoax, but is still beloved today and is even a mascot up in Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
That's awesome. Thank you for telling us about fearsome critters today.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I'm going to have fun going back and re-listening and editing this one, because I felt like I was listening to stuff that Dr. Seuss would have come up with.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I didn't even get to the lesser known ones, and those are the duck-footed dum-dum and the dungaven hooter and the dingbat and the gloacus and the gumbaroo and shagamaw. It is very Dr. Seussian.
Do any of these fearsome critters stand out to you as your favorite?
It's so hard to pick because a lot of them are just ridiculous. I am a sucker for, hey, let's just put antlers on this thing. The boont is a bear with antlers, the jackalope, rabbit with antlers. So for some reason, I just like the ones that can be a taxidermy hoax.
Let's dig into that a little bit. Is it because of their origin as a taxidermy host that makes them interesting to you?
It's just fun. A lot of these taxidermy hoaxes were used at fun fairs and things like that, but I like it when everybody's in on the joke.
Mm-hmm.
I made the Texas Roadhouse joke earlier, and it's well, yeah, I love seeing these little taxidermy bunnies, and they just put fake antlers on them, and it's seen as just this inside joke that everybody loves and sees as endearing.
So how did your interest in fearsome critters begin?
I've always been a huge fan of mythology and particularly monsters that come with mythology. And I was given this activities book when I was a kid, maybe 11, 12 years old or so. And it was filled with puzzles and spot the difference pictures and mazes and stuff. And it was all about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and the Mary Celeste ghost ship. So that kind of sent me down this path of creatures that may exist or may not exist. So I've always been interested in cryptids, but I was introduced to the concept of fearsome critters through another podcast that I love, which is the Spirits podcast. And they did kind of a roundup episode of all these different fearsome critters. So then I jumped in and started researching them as well. And they're just ridiculous and I love them.
You mentioned before that some of these critters have gained a new popularity on the internet. Do you have any ideas about why these stories have lasted and how they got outside of the lumberjack circles where they originated and into the modern consciousness?
I feel like there is this fascination with cryptids in particular because there's that kind of what if question. Like, oh, what if there is a big bipedal furry man walking around? It's a species we haven't discovered yet. And I think humans are always interested in having a little bit of mystery in their lives, and hopefully there's stuff that's still left to discover. It's just part of like oral traditions and stories that we pass along. And I don't know, it's fascinating. And I love the resurgence we're having right now of cryptid love on the internet. I know Mothman is very big on the internet right now, and I am a huge fan of Mothman. I have an entire shrine in my bedroom dedicated to little Mothman plushies and stuff. So
What else is on the Mothman shrine?
I have a Mothman plushie, a crochet Mothman that a friend made for me. I have a little enamel Mothman pin of him holding a trans pride flag that says Mothman says trans rights.
Excellent.
I have a little Mothman investigation card, an art print from a local artist, and I'm always looking to add new things, always on the hunt for new Mothman merch.
We were talking a little bit before about how the just slap an antler on them sort of taxidermy creatures, we're all in on the joke with that. And certainly, while there may have been a point in time where people genuinely believed in them, science marches on, understanding marches on. And it kind of feels good that no matter how far we get into scientific progression and being able to prove what's real and what's not real, we're always just going to want to have fun and think about, but what if there was something else that was really wacky out there? What if it is real?
Yeah, and I think that's such a great question, this what if, because it not only encourages us to get out there and explore and question what we think we know. I'm trying to remember, there was a wonderful quote by a famous cryptozoologist that was talking about, I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't think of it off the top of my head, but he was talking about how cryptids aren't fantastical, they're not mythological. They have kind of a root in reality. And the pursuit of cryptozoology isn't necessarily crazy cuckoo bonkers. It's this fascination of science and this reigniting of the passion and wonder and just asking ourselves, okay, what else could be out there? Because the second we think we know everything is the second we're going to start missing stuff.
We mentioned in your introduction that you're a writer. Are there any ways that your passion for fearsome critters factors into your writing?
Yes, I am working on a cryptid novel currently that also features a bunch of fearsome critters in it. The basic premise is like there's a family who runs a sanctuary for cryptids so they can just live free and not have to worry about being interfered with humans.
Is there anything that you don't like about fearsome critters? And if so, how do you handle that?
I don't think there is anything I dislike about them. Again, some of them are super ridiculous. Some of them are a little bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but I guess realistic.
What makes them more realistic?
Like we have crazy kind of chimerical creatures that are like a mixture of a bear and a wolf and a lion and all these different things. There's one creature called the snallygaster, which is an enormous flying monster with one eye and tentacle tongues.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are creatures such as like the silver cat or the digmal or the ball-tailed cat. They're very similar, which are essentially just mountain lions or lynxes, but with slightly different tails that can be used as weapons. So there's such a wonderful range, I think, of fearsome critters, from the totally ridiculous, almost Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, to something that could be a little bit more realistic within our world, potentially.
It sounds like at one end of the spectrum are the what if creatures, and at the other end, they're the why not creatures. And then there's everything in between.
Exactly.
Allison, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. This has been fantastic.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about Fearsome Critters or our guest Allison, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And if you have something you love so freaking much you want to tell me all about it, consider this your invitation to join the show. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.
I was introduced to Fearsome Critters as the subsection. There goes the dog. I'm so sorry.
Nothing to apologize for.
Just give her another second. Throw a treat for her.
She wants to contribute her knowledge on fearsome critters.
She is a fearsome critter.
I am a fearsome critter.